and we welcome in the pride of the United States of America. I don't know. I tie them in together somehow. And the Lord of the Kings beat. He's our 1320 Kings insider. What's happening, Hammer?
What's going on, guys? Hopefully my internet holds up today. I don't know. We're having issues. I'm piping this off my phone today, so interesting.
You look fantastic. Yeah, you sound fantastic.
All right. Let's just go with it then.
Yeah, man.
Roll along. You look almost as good as De'Aaron Fox did on Saturday. Do you like? There are still a lot of grouchy people when it comes to De'Aaron Fox, and I think part of it is it's like, he's playing great again late. Hey, buddy, why don't you try this in game 1 next year? Just the fact that he's playing really good at the end of the season again. Is it kind of like all right, De'Aaron, this is awesome, man, but you're going to have to start this process a little bit earlier next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he knows that too. And the goal is to build around these guys, to build around Sabonis, to build around Fox, and see if you got something. And so far, I mean, he's like I told you guys this in the beginning, that I think Sabonis is the player that can totally unlock De'Aaron Fox. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing him just become the star level player that we thought he could be. He was a nominee for the Western Conference Player of the Week. He did not win it. That's because his team didn't win. But just the fact that he's nominated again, that he's averaging, I think it's 28.3 points over his last 11 games. I mean, he's just on a tear. And, again, you're right. He has to show this from the start of the season, from day 1 of training camp next year. This is who he has to be.
Do you think, because the argument against Fox is always he doesn't affect winning or his team's not winning or whatever, do you think that there are other things that he can do, from the start of the season, everything that could change, the team winning? Like, we'll take Saturday as an example. I'm not saying he's always scoring 44 points, but is there anything that he can do in games like that to get a win? I don't know if there is, but I mean, that's the ridiculous argument that comes with people. It's like he doesn't affect winning.
Yeah, I mean, he took 31 shots, and I thought he played solid defense. I thought, like, overall, I don't think there's any way that you can knock the game that he put together. He was incredible, and he was incredible from the jump. You saw it right away. You're like, he looks like he's going to have a big game. And then, I mean, I didn't see 44 coming. But it should have been more. I mean, he should have got to the free throw line at least like 3 or 4 more times. So we're talking another, 6 to 8 free throw attempts. The last 2-minute report came out and said they made a mistake in the final 2 minutes where he got clearly fouled. He's just still not getting any respect. And to see a guy go to the free throw line only 6 times when I think he only took 4 3-pointers, I guess, like, at the end of the day, like, you can see what's wrong with this team, and I'll keep saying it. They just don't have any shooting at all. Like, Harrison Barnes needs to shoot more. Even De'Aaron Fox needs to shoot a little bit more from the perimeter. But these guys are getting wide open looks, and they're just not hitting them. And at some point, you got to find better players. You got to find better shooters. And I think that will be the mission this summer. It's just to stack this roster with as many pure shooters as they can possibly find at every position they can possibly find. And, there was the fact that the Kings lost and De'Aaron Fox scored 44. Fox did nothing wrong in that game. That 100% goes on the teammates that just missed one wide open 3-pointer after another.
Or took a bad one in a crucial moment. And we'll get to that. But I wanted, you brought up De'Aaron not getting foul calls. And that seems to have been like, this between De'Aaron not getting foul calls and DeMontis getting too many of them. Like, how do you even address that? Like, how is that something like what can De'Aaron, because DeMontis is getting called for some sketchy fouls. De'Aaron isn't getting any calls in his favor at all. Like, if you're those two players or Alvin Gentry or whoever the future coach is, how is that something you can even address?
I think the one thing you should have done in that game is we saw it from the Mavs. How many technicals did they pick up in the first half? I think it was 3 for yelling and screaming at the officials. Like,
Barton should have been thrown out. Shut your mouth.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, at a certain point, Fox needs to pick up a tech, or Alvin Gentry needs to pick up a tech, or somebody needs to pick up a tech and say, look, this is unbalanced. What's going on here? And,
Mhm.
we saw it. Harrison Barnes called out the officials a couple of games ago, too. They lost a game because of a bad call. This is the second time. And they're no longer in the playing conversation. You put those 2 wins in the other column, and I mean, those 2 losses in the other column, and all of a sudden this team is right in it. And that's just not what happens. The league, the 2-minute report and all that stuff. To me, it has one intention, but it does not work the way that they think it's going to work. It looks like spilt milk afterwards. It looks like someone trying to cover their behind afterwards. To me, they just need to stop doing it, because your officials clearly aren't getting any better. They just keep making the same exact calls against teams like the Kings, because that's what happens.
So De'Aaron's 44, the 1 missed free throw, the 1 missed 3-pointer, and people still found a way to gripe about him. It's like, I don't like. Is it as simple as starting from game 1 that will win people over? Is that how he wins the portion of the fan base that he lost? Is game 1 next year, or is it the win column?
I think it's both. Yeah, I mean, even like in that
One
game,
probably results in the other, so that was probably phrased poorly on my part.
it's okay. Yeah, and I looked at like that game. There were people who were complaining about Harrison Barnes in that game as well, because I do 6 takeaways from each game, and people are like, "Hey, like, why are you mentioning Davion Mitchell?" I'm like, "Well, because Davion Mitchell had a bad game. He had a bad shooting game again, and he's clearly hit a rookie wall." It's like, well, why didn't you mention Harrison Barnes? Like, well, because Harrison Barnes ran like a +8 and was impactful, and the reason why he only took 8 shots is because his starting point guard shot 31 shots. Like, that's what happens when you're playing a lot of your minutes with somebody who's on a heater. Then you take a step back from your own game and you let them, you put them in a position to win. And I thought that Harrison Barnes, I didn't have any problems. I had problems with some bad shots from some of the players on this team. And again, like, it's not that Davion Mitchell's a bad player, but I think he ran like a -18 or something. Like, his impact on the court was very negative, and you could feel him like getting all like anxious and tense, like in the middle of the game. It's just like, oof, it's just, this is going badly. And like, Alvin Gentry doesn't have a bunch of players waiting to go in to give you something different to fix this. Especially if Jeremy Lamb's not available and Terrence Davis isn't available. So you got to roll with what you got right now until they got something better.
Ham, just to go back to the Fox point that I just was trying to get out there. I mean, since February 1st, he's top 10 scorer in the league. You know what I mean? The man is averaging 28 points a night. Since January 1st, top 12. He's averaging 26 a night. So, and he's doing it on 51% from the field. So I'm not sure what more he can do in this situation. You want to see the assist totals come up a little bit, but I mean, he's extremely efficient. And I think the next evolution of his game, like you said, is number one, start earlier, in the season. We shouldn't have a ramp up. But other than that, it would probably be the defense. But the last few games, he's starting to step up on the defensive end as well.
Yeah, I think he's been really good. I mean, we saw it with the Brandon Ingram situation, where he actually asked to play Brandon Ingram in the second half. Ingram goes for 24 in the first half, and I think he scored, was it 9 in the second half? And Fox was impactful, and he's been impactful on the defensive end the last couple of games. He's got to do that more regularly. I mean, I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. He's not a great defensive player, but I still think that you spend a summer working with Doug, you spend a summer getting stronger. He'll figure out the defensive end, and I also think that when you take the ball out of his hands and he doesn't have to be a 30 usage guy like every single game. Some games he can cut that back to like 25. then that will allow him to be more impactful in the defensive end because he is spending a lot of his energy on the offensive end. And if you can transfer some of that weight to Sabonis, and I know they have done that, but even more of it, then I think, again, he's going to have a lot more energy. The assists, like I would love to tell you that he's going to bump up his assists, but he's not going to bump them up until he actually has teammates hit shots. And when you got no one hitting any shots at all, when you're hitting 9 or 10 3-pointers a game, down from hitting 15, 16 a game early in the season, that's a problem. And it's a problem for some of these players that just aren't coming through. And at some point, again, that's where you have to attack. And he needs to get a little bit more efficient in the Domantas Sabonis two-man game, but man, there's just some incredible plays there that you got to love what you're seeing. He had the one where he drew 2 to the baseline and bounced pass backwards to Sabonis, who came flying in. He's starting to figure out. Sabonis already knows how to make him good. He's starting to figure out how to make Sabonis good, and we're watching the early stages of what could be a really, really elite pairing.
Yeah.
Is it? Sorry, Casey, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention. I look at these numbers and you see Fox up there, and then ahead of him a couple times is SGA and Ja, and it just reminds me. People will be like, "Oh, well, he's not SGA or he's not Ja." All right, but that doesn't mean all of these guys are balling. All of these guys are nice. SGA is super nice. Ja, obviously MVP candidate, and just because they have numbers that might be a little better, that doesn't mean Fox ain't balling himself. These guys are putting up big time numbers right now, man. And I just don't want people to lose sight of that when they see this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think specifically with Ja, he's leading his team to wins, and some of the highlight reel stuff he does is just unbelievable.
Same.
I mean, he really does look like a young Derrick Rose before the injuries just wiped him out. But I'll say this about Shea, there's no one else on that team, and no one else is even the guys that they do have. They're not even playing them. So all of his numbers, that's fine, but they're really, really hollow. I mean, you could say that about Fox's 44 in a losing effort, but he played really well, and we saw Shea do it against the Kings, but they weren't even in the ball game. So a lot of those things are really, really hollow stats, and I believe he's a very good player, but at the same time, you got to do it on a team that wins more than 20 games a year, and you got to do it on a team that has NBA players all over the court, where they're not running guys out there that other teams are lining up to get their hands on, because they're just so incredible. I really like Lou Dort. I really, really like Josh Giddey, but again, those guys are sitting out. You're seeing Shea do this while they're sitting out, and that's just the Oklahoma City way. It's a Sam Presti way. It's just to tank in the most egregious way possible.
James, you said something about Davion Mitchell that caught my attention. I want to dive into that, plus talk a little bit more about Harrison Barnes and the game tonight against the New York Knicks. We'll do all of that when James Hammer, 1320 Kings Insider, returns with us here on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. Clear.
Sweet. The Wi-Fi's holding up?
Oh,
yeah, you're good.
Big time.
Good.
Yeah.
I won't mess with it.
Sound like you said you're on your phone? Oh, you're
Yeah.
hotspotting from your phone.
Yeah, I'm using my phone as my
gotcha.
hotspot.
I
Yeah.
was like, well, it looks exactly the same. How did you get your phone? Yeah, I got it. You're running your computer through the phone. Gotcha.
Yeah, Rory, I don't like using single game plus minus. I get what you're saying, because it is a large sample size thing. But when you have one player that stands out, a player or two stands out every game, and sometimes the stats match what your eye is seeing. And in all honesty, that's exactly what I see when it comes to Davion. He's in a rookie funk, and that's okay. Some games he's good, some games he's not, and that's why you keep playing him and trying to get all this experience. But for me, it was clear he was a -18 or whatever, and Barnes was a +8. Barnes was solid. He just didn't shoot the ball a bunch.
Yeah. And I just feel like he has to.
Yeah, but I mean, in that specific game, in 38 minutes, he ran a +5. I mean, Fox shot 31 shots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then Justin Holiday shot 12 shots.
Maybe that's
know?
a problem.
Well, the problem, it's not that he's shooting 12, it's that he's going 1 of 7 from 3.
Oh.
Like, he's just so unreliable. It's like horrendous. So, that's the problem. Other guys have to step up and do the basics. They have to do just the basics. If two other players just did basic run-of-the-mill, what they've done all season long, the Kings win that game by 8 points. But when Holiday goes 4 for 12 and 1 for 7 from the field, and, again, DiVincenzo, 3 of 10, Davion missed all 3 of his 3-point shots, like 2 of 9 from the field. Yeah. It's just, you can't win when your tertiary guys like hurt you. And that's what I've seen lately, that those guys, it's not, they're just not even giving you a shot. So, and I need Gentry to figure out ways to get Harrison Barnes more shots. Like, call some plays for him. I know he doesn't like to call plays, but call some plays. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's probably a discussion for down the road. Hey, the stars are in here. What's up, guys? I assume that's Deuce. Deuce, you did just a phenomenal job on Saturday, man. Congratulations. That was awesome.
You did do a great job, dude. Like, really good energy. Really good energy.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, like you like Deuce, you legit look like, again, if this is Mo, just relay this to Deuce. You look like you had been doing this for 10 seasons. You look like you've been doing it as long as James has. Like, that's just awesome. Really good stuff, Deuce.
Yeah, really good, man. I'm excited for those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Ham, what is
my
favorite
cereal? Take over the world
cereal?
and leave us.
I'm a Cookie Crisp guy.
There you go.
And the Good Captain with Crunch Berries.
The Good Captain. There you go. The Good Captain. I haven't eaten cereal in probably a decade, but Cookie Crisp would be where I go. Pretty much anything with cookies. Like, if it's a cookie, I'll rock with it.
I don't really like milk, so I don't eat a lot of cereal. We do have cereal in the house all the time, though. My boys eat cereal.
Like, this almond milk, cashew milk, just no milk at all.
Yeah, I mean, on occasion I'll drink milk, but usually with the like I'll do Ritz with peanut butter and milk late at night after games when I get home.
There you go. That's a solid snack.
Yeah,
that's a solid snack.
Man, people just ask them random. My favorite brand of shoes. I have a whole line of Timberland boots and low top slip-ons that are all
dunking them. You're going to dunk in your Timberland boots like
No, they're
who
not.
did that?
Like,
Was that RJ? Who did that?
Yeah, I can't remember. Like the big.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a Timberland rep, and Timberland has a whole high-end line of boots. So I even have waterproof boots from them. So on games where it's raining,
120 pounds each. Those gotta walk like sideways to lift them heavy things up. Oh, man. It's National Cereal Day. I think that's why we're talking cereal. So shout out to Manny. Coming back, guys. Live on the Odyssey app, live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live as well. It's Tilo and KC, brought to you by McQueen and the Violet Fog, the smoothest gin in the world, handcrafted in Brazil. Our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, with us here as we get ready for the Sacramento Kings and the New York Knicks. You were talking about Davion Mitchell a minute ago, and you said something that kind of stuck in my brain there for a second. You said as he was playing, and he didn't have a particularly good game. He didn't have a good game at all. He had that. You brought up his plus minus stat. He had the worst plus minus on the team by far. But you said you could see him almost getting nervous, kind of getting jittery out there. Do you think that's because Dante DiVincenzo is now there? Like his I don't know if this is the right way of phrasing it, but I think you'll know what I mean. His place on the team is now in question a little bit.
No, because I don't think his place on the team is in question. No,
Okay.
I think it's that he understands. He's very in tune with the fact that he's not having a good game. Like, you can tell when he knows that things have gone wrong. And he's kind of been this way the whole season, where either he hits his shots or he doesn't. There isn't like a real middle ground with him. And a lot of times he'll try to get to the glass and try to take the ball to the rim when he isn't hitting shots. And even that wasn't happening the other night. He had a couple of he had a high floater. I think he had one blocked. You can see him gripping a little bit. And look, I think it's possible what you're asking about DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo brings such a different vibe to the team that it is possible that he might be making a player like Davion a little anxious, because that's kind of the way he plays. He plays with so like much reckless abandon that Davion's looking at him like, should I be doing that? And the answer is no. Like, you only get one of those guys who's playing that way and who jumps passing routes and all that stuff. If you have multiple on the court at one time, then like it just becomes like Keystone Cop stuff. You're smacking into each other and you're leaving guys wide open for open threes because everyone's out of control. And so like that's not what I want from Davion. I want him to like just find his consistency, because I do think he is set up to be a really good shooter at the NBA level, as long as he's not trying to do too much. And he can be a very efficient, like helpful offensive player. He doesn't have to be a guy who has 5 assists a night. He just needs to play really good defense, and when he gets open shots, hit them. And every once in a while, when they start to jump out on you, race right by somebody and get to the rack and finish in the lane.
That really does baffle me why he's not a better shooter. You see he puts the work in. It doesn't look like a bad shot, like bad form or anything like that. It's just wildly inconsistent. And I would just, I would think and would hope, the more he gets in these NBA settings, it's, one thing working out of Baylor where you're just getting the shot up. But when you have a guy like Rico, and if he gets a shot doctor like.
Oh, did we just lose Kenny?
We might have lost Kenny.
I think we just lost Kenny.
To be honest with you, it's a little concerning right now that he's,
We didn't hear any of that.
What?
Kenny's
None
back.
of it. Like you just kind of like froze and stopped, and we were like, "Oh my, Kenny has completely disappeared." And I love the fact that you didn't know that you didn't, and you just continued going. We have no clue what you just said.
I was talking about my exclusive interview that I had with Davion Mitchell about his shot, and I can't repeat it now. I forgot everything that happened, so you guys will be left in the dark. Basically, I was saying I'm surprised that Davion isn't a better shooter. Like, I think his form doesn't look messed up or anything like that.
Davion, shout out your internet. I think that's what happened.
My internet had an off afternoon, I guess.
In all honesty, I think he's going to be a perfectly like suitable like third, fourth option, like especially coming off the bench. Like he's a very good shooter. Like you watch him, all of it's repeatable. Like, he doesn't have some weird hitch. He shoots the same exact shot every single time. It's just, honestly, he works too hard. And I think he needs to learn how to manage his workload better. I think he is still wearing himself out before games. And it's something the Kings have talked about all season, trying to pull him back just a little bit so he has something left in the tank. But like a lot of these guys, they're working out after games. Like, he's one of those guys that you just can't keep out of the gym. And at some point, you have to understand that part of it, body maintenance is such a huge part of an NBA season. But this kid's never been through 82 games. And he's doubled up his senior year it was senior year at Baylor, junior year at Baylor, whatever it was. He doubled it up already. We're looking at 60-something games. And that's just a lot. It's a lot to take on and a lot to understand. All the NBA travel, all of the late nights, which you're just not used to at the college level, and so he needs to adapt, and he'll figure it out. And I don't have any concerns about him long term. I just know right now he's not helping you,
Does he have a
like
lengthy
in certain
pregame?
games.
Does he have a lengthy pregame routine?
Yeah, he has a lengthy pregame, but he also he's there in the morning working out and he's doing all kinds of stuff. Like he's there all the time working out, and they really have to figure out a way to manage his workload. And it's his own self-driven nature. He does the work, and so I think this summer you're going to see a huge step from him because he is learning a ton about the things that he's doing well and things he's not, that he's struggling with. And I expect him to be a much better player in year two. Even though he is an older rookie, I still think he's going to be much better in year two.
I think people see that like Ray Allen stuff and go, "Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do what Ray Allen did." Like, no, fam, that ain't for you. Like that was for Ray. That worked for Ray. That regimen worked for Ray, where he'd show up 2 hours before a game started or whatever it was and go through this long, extensive workout process. That's not the booklet for NBA players. There are a lot of athletes like Kara Lawson tried to run that. Like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do this. Her trainer was like, dude, this is dumb. Like, this ain't for you. Like, you don't need to do this. You need to conserve your energy for the game, but you look to the people that you model yourself after, or that you look to the people who are great at their position, or are great at, I want to do that. I want to do that. Like, yeah, that took time to build, and that's what worked for Ray. Same thing with Kobe. Like, Kobe built this out. LeBron, Chris Paul, these guys built this out over lengthy careers. It doesn't mean you walk in year one or year two and go, I'm gonna do that. Like, your body's different.
Yeah, that, and as you get older, these guys have learned nutrition. They're paying for chefs. They're paying for masseuses. LeBron, what is it? They estimate he spends $1 million a year.
1.5. He's up to 1.5. Yeah, Chris Paul took 1 million, so LeBron had to go up to 1.5.
Yeah,
true story.
No, but they're spending that much money on their body. That's a lot. They are putting in not just the work, but they're also being smart about it. And it's a thing that Harrison Barnes does. He really does maintain his body in just a different way. And it's something that everyone needs to learn when they come in the league. And some guys never learn it. And then you see their bodies just completely fall apart. And, they just don't have the longevity. How does a guy like Trevor Ariza just keep going? How did Vince Carter play until his 40s? Especially as a leaper, and you have to reinvent yourself all the time. And I just think that's all it is with Davion. Davion's going to be just fine. If there's anyone that I'm not worried about on the Kings, it's him. That's one of the few guys that you just point to and go, look, I know he does the work. I know that what he does as a player, like his defensive acumen, is only going to improve, and it's already at such a high level. I know he's going to knock down shots because, again, it's repeatable. It's when you get these guys that you see them in the gym and all they do is off balance this, off balance that. Everything is different. Everything is they're trying to be cute with. That's just not. He's a blue collar worker. That's what Davion is. He's a guy who brings his heart at and who knows exactly who he is on most nights. But that doesn't mean that you don't start to grip a little bit when things are going wrong and you aren't trying too hard to try to get yourself out of a funk, which is, I think, what he's doing right now.
Yeah, so fine balance sometimes. Sometimes the answer is to put in more work to, get whatever kinks you have out of your shot or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's just walk away for a quick second and get your mind right that way. And it's just, you never know which one it takes. You never know which is the right one, but you got to experiment with it as a player as you go along. Real quick, not to shade anybody, is Davion the hardest worker you've seen in Sacramento? Ever?
No, I mean, I don't know. That's, to me, that's always an interesting question. Buddy Hield was an incredibly hard worker. You see a lot of these guys that are just incredible workers. So I think for a long time there was, are you a gym rat or are you a workout warrior? And then every once in a while you get a combination of the gym rat and the workout warrior. So guys like Kobe are both, right? They're guys that spend so much time in the gym. And I'll even say, I've seen the guys that that don't do the extra stuff, that just want to go in there and shoot and just want to play. Guys like, not to like call a guy out, but Marcus Thornton, like all he wanted to do was shoot, and all he wanted to do is play one-on-one and pick up games and all this stuff. But he didn't hit the gym, like the weight room, hard enough. So when he got a knee to the thigh, it cost him a month. He would get a deep thigh bruise, and it's like, well, you're getting deep thigh bruises. De'Aaron Fox gets deep thigh bruises all the time and plays right through it because he's done a ton of work on his body. Now, every player is different, and some guys, you have them, they come in and they're just, you can tell all they did was work out and they didn't pick up a basketball at all, and you're just like, come on, man, like there's no way you're gonna be able to shoot like that. You just. The Hassan Whiteside, I think he gained 40-something pounds between his rookie and second season. And then the second he stepped on the court, he hurt his knee. Because just his body, like, couldn't carry that much weight, like, initially. He needed to grow into the weight, not just stack it all on in one season. And so I really do think that every player is different in how they handle stuff. But there has to be some sort of combination of doing both and maintaining your body and working on your game. I mean, again, Harrison Barnes, you can tell how much he works on his game. I mean, look at his shooting over the last couple of years. It just keeps getting better and better and better. Look at how he's added the Euro step. Look at how he's added the physicality to get to the line. On top of that, his body is in pristine shape. His body is his temple. You can tell that he lives by that motto. So he's a guy who's doing both.
You're listening to D'Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento and Odyssey Station. And driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge, 1320 Kings insider James Ham with us here as we get you ready for the Sacramento Kings and the New York Knicks. Tonight with the dreaded 7:30 start. Let's go back.
7:30 starts. I guess I'm
horrible. It's just only evil people love the 7:30 starts. Let's go back now. This start time was very much up my alley, a 2:00 start time on Saturday. Do you have any idea what the call was with 40 seconds left when Dante took that very ill-advised three at the end of the game?
I don't want to just bury guys because I thought that in that game.
You said that a minute ago and you immediately said Marcus Thornton.
Yeah. But when it comes to some of these guys, like DiVincenzo, like what you don't want to do is take away that spirit that he plays with, because the reason why they won the Spurs game, in my opinion, and it's probably the play of the season, was the offensive rebound by Dante DiVincenzo, where he was in a pack of players and all of a sudden he wasn't. He was on the ball and no one else was. And then he fed it to Harrison Barnes for the and one. Like that play to me, it was just like, it's so indicative of who he is as a player. So I don't want to take a bunch of stuff away from Dante DiVincenzo because what makes him good is that it's that erratic, wild, unpredictable thing that he does where he plays and he lives in a world of chaos, and that's okay. You can't have multiple guys that do that, but certainly one guy who's doing it, that's fine. And I coach soccer forever, and when you got a chaos guy that you put in the middle of the field, you then have to find the most stable person ever to play alongside him. So if you're going to have two midfielders, one of them is running around and slide tackling and doing crazy things, the other dude has to be in position and playing the middle of the field the entire time and covering for his teammate. And it takes a selfless person and a selfless role player. And that's where I do think that him and Davion can really have common ground. For every bit that DiVincenzo is wild and out of control, Davion is completely in control and in position. And so they might be able to make like a perfect marriage because of that. But every once in a while, you're going to have to live with a bad shot. You would just hope that he would be smart enough not to do it with under a minute left in the fourth quarter in a tight game. And those are the things where you really have to say, hey, man, look, maybe next year you can do that. If you work really hard and get your game all the way back to where it was, and we're confident that you're close to a 40% three-point shooter, then we're okay with that. but sometimes, you just want to grab a dude with a big long hook and rip him off the court. He does do some things that reminds you of Buddy Hield, except for when he does them, it's not out of a lack of understanding, or it's just that he's playing with his hair on fire. He's literally like trying his best to be like an instigator and cause chaos and mayhem on the court. And I get it. And I think it's really good to have players like that. But you can't have them taking bad shots in crucial moments. And I mean, for that matter, you can't have guys like, to call a guy out, Justin Holiday, who just flat out misses wide open shots again and again and again. Like those shots have to go down at some point, and you can't get to 40% by going 6 of 10 one night and 1 of 7 the other night. You just can't live with a guy like that. And that's
There's a guy that got labeled elite for doing exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, you're
put
basically
his head next to Steph Curry.
Yeah, you're living in the Buddy Hield world. It's what you're doing, and that's just a really good way to lose more than half your games. So you got to be better. You got to be more stable. You got to be more consistent. We've heard that word consistency all season long. It can mean as little as, man, it's okay if you go 3 for 6, 3 for 7 from 3. It's not okay if you go 1 for 10. And we don't need the highs and lows. We need you to be stable and just hit your shots. And that's what, like, some of the biggest moments in the last week, where this is realistically, it's almost playoff basketball. Like, teams are going at each other. We're seeing high level play. The Kings have played really well, but you got guys just flat out missing shots, and you can't go 10 for 30 from 3 every game, or 9 for 29. That you're just not going to win at the NBA level.
James, I look at this Kings team and I continue to feel they're just a player or two off. Like there's a player that should be in there, like in that particular situation when DiVincenzo takes that shot. Holiday and DiVincenzo probably shouldn't be on the court at the same time. You could have one of them on there and then somebody better than either one of them, and everything would be fine. But the fact that you kind of have to have them both out there because those are two of your best players, that's just the little fine tuning that the roster needs. I think that could take them to another level. When I say another level, I'm not saying, one of the top teams in the league, but I'm talking about like where Minnesota is, where you're 4 or 5 games over 500. I like everything else about this roster. I see the vision. I see how it works. I just think they're one player away from being able to get to another level.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably maybe one, maybe 2, maybe even 3, but I at least know what those players are. Like, that's what you're looking at. It's very easy to see. Just, you don't even have to have like super elite, but what you have to have is like role players that make the other role players better. And I think that's the problem. And again, I think Justin Holiday might look perfectly fine playing 18 to 20 minutes off the bench if you have a really good starting shooting guard. And so you take, like, part of it is that Justin Holiday is having to go up against starting level shooting guards. And maybe he was at one point, or maybe he can be. I'm not even sure if he's really a starting level shooting guard in the NBA. And it's not a bash on him. He's made a career in the NBA. He's lasted for a long time. But at the same time, he's going up against like really good players. And some of those players are absolutely torching the Kings because he's going up against those players. And if you had a better shooting guard that you could start over him, then he's going up against the next tier of player, and we won't have such this disparity in what's happening on the court between the starters and the bench. So I think this team needs a 3-and-D wing. They need a stretch 4 that can play defense and block shots. And in all honesty, I think they need a starting level 2. And again, we talked about this before, but like Norman Powell was available. That's the guy that could have slid in and just like all of a sudden now you're cooking. Now you got something that you're building towards something.
Yeah.
So with the starting level 2, is Terrence Davis the odd man out?
No, Terrence Davis is your microwave, I think. But see, that's the problem when you're looking at this team right now. There's some major question marks. Like, can you play DiVincenzo and Terrence Davis together off the bench? Can you play either one of them at the 3? Can you play them in 3-guard sets? I'm like, there are a lot of questions coming into this offseason. And, I wrote about it on Sunday. The Kings have all kinds of ammo to go out. They have so many expiring contracts going into next season. It's crazy. And small, movable. Like, you got like Alex Len at $3.9 million. You got Mo Harkless at like $4.6 million. You've got Terrence Davis at $4 million. You've got Justin Holiday at $6.3 million. If you pick up Trey Lyles' contract, you got $2.6 million. You got Harrison Barnes at $18.3 million. Like, all of a sudden, we're talking about, they've got $40 million in expiring contracts. It's kind of what we walked into this season with, but you can't wait around. You need to attack like the free agent market, the draft, trades, all that stuff. Like, this team has to look completely different by July 10th. And then you start like piecing this thing together for the season and getting it ready and adding the little pieces around. But like, this team really needs like that next level swing for the fence. That, can you do it again? Can Monty McNair do it again? Can he retain Harrison Barnes and add another big piece? Whether you're using this year's draft pick or you're using the 2023 and 2025 picks. I mean, you were able to retain a lot of value at the trade deadline, and people can argue that they shouldn't have given up Tyrese Halliburton, but at the same time, you retained all of your picks, all of this. Like, you should have enough to, number one, even if you just keep this year's pick, add a top tier player. There's going to be a lot of players that not only are good, but that fit exactly what the Kings need. That stretch 4, that stretch 3, that, the 3-and-D guy, all that stuff. There's a couple of starting level 2s that are going to be sitting there. And then you're going to have to figure out what you do with the rest of these guys afterwards, because you can't make your decisions on your team 100% based on, guys who are role players. Role players work really well when they're around really good players. So again, DiVincenzo looks much different when he's playing in a starting lineup with, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Drew Holiday, and Brook Lopez. He just looks completely different. He can go do the things he's doing now, and that's fine. But when you put him on a team that doesn't have the same talent level, now it exposes some things. And so that's where you got to make smart moves from here on out. You got to do it quick, and you got to build for something, because 16 consecutive losing seasons is brutal for anyone.
Yeah. No, they absolutely, and I agree with you, Ham. They need to go out and get Giannis.
Yeah.
To make DiVincenzo's game look a little better.
It was in his Sunday musings.
Yeah, I had to just go out and get just go out and get him. Yeah, I mean, I like watch some clip. Hey, let me make the Kings a contender in 30 seconds, and it's like, re-sign DiVincenzo, bring back Trey Lyles, and wait, and then like he threw in some draft picks, and then next summer sign Chris Middleton. It's like, okay, all right, it's over. Just getting Chris Middleton. Yeah, just sign him up. It's happening.
Chris Middleton's definitely going to want to leave the Bucks to come play for Sacramento.
That's right. Yeah,
he
just wants
willingly
to
leave Giannis Antetokounmpo. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Internet's a dangerous place, man.
It's
Internet
great.
is a
It's a
dangerous
wild place. James, I'm the ultimate optimist when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Am I crazy for not thinking the season is not over yet? I know it's a long shot, but look, do you have a good week? Pelicans have a bad week?
The answer is yes. You just kill all of this drama. The answer is yes. You're crazy.
Season's not over. It's not over.
Game over. Over. Yeah,
it's not
game
likely.
Over. It ended on Saturday. Over. Yeah,
you think Saturday, that was the one they needed.
It ended for like the third time on Saturday, because it ended against New Orleans too.
Yeah, I mean, but if you looked at the New Orleans thing, that was a big blow, but you still have one more game against New Orleans, and on top of that, you still have a 2-1 record against New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
So even though that was a tough one, you could claw back in. But when you lost and the Lakers somehow beat the Warriors, and the Pelicans won as well. Oh no, the Pelicans
But the
lost.
You're right though. The Pelicans won one and lost last night to Denver.
Yeah. So there is a way where if someone gets hurt, that it opens a door. Like there's always that, but I just don't see it. Their schedule is so brutal. Look how many games they play against really good teams. And the problem is when you play really good teams in the last like 3 games, 4 games of the season, sometimes you can get one. But when you're playing those teams with like 16, 15, 14 games left in the season, that's when playoff teams are ramping up and showing what they got. And they're playing for their positioning in the playoffs. They're playing for home court advantage. Like you're going to have a really tough time. Now, if you got to the last 2 games of the season and the Lakers and Kings are super, super close, and everyone is looking at the standings and going, you know what? If I'm the Clippers and I can lose to the Kings and it means LeBron doesn't make the playoffs, and if I'm the Suns and I'm thinking I could lose this game to the Kings and then LeBron will not face me as the number 8 seed, then we could start seeing some weird things happening. Where teams go, hey, look, we're gonna we're gonna do what Portland did the other a couple of years ago, where they played 6 players. Like we could see something like that where they pull out all their G League guys, but the Kings have to survive so much to get to those final 2 games, and I just don't. I mean, it's so hard to imagine because of the schedule.
Kings are winning the next 2 games. It's written right here. They're winning the next 2 games. I mean, this thing hasn't failed me once. Well, it's failed me once, but it hasn't failed me twice.
It's written in cursive in his notebook.
You certainly could have some Drake bars ready for tomorrow. You're gonna have to stay up late because it's such a late game, but you might need to hit Drake
late.
bars tomorrow. But the next game and the one after that,
I got them beating Denver. I got them beating Denver at home.
But then you got Utah, and then you got the Bucks. I
mean, I have them losing those 2 games.
Yeah, it just gets brutal.
Doesn't change.
How the hell did you get to 14?
Like results in 14 and 11. Like I did this, James. If you don't know what I'm talking about, 25 games left. I just went win loss for the rest of the season. I have the Kings finishing 14 and 11 in their final 25 games. And so far, James, I think this is the 10th game tonight. I've only been wrong once with the loss to Brooklyn. I said they would win that one. They lost. But I got other losses, other wins. Everything's gone according to plan. And yeah, in this, I have them losing. They win the next 2. They lose 3 straight.
Okay,
that sounds like the Kings. That sounds like Kings basketball right there.
It does.
Hey, you might be onto something.
If this turns out being right, just call me Calvin Ridley.
There you go.
I'm going to film.
Well,
you got 1,500 on this. 1,500 to lose 10 million.
Penny will be suspended for the remainder of the season. More likely to ever play a Kings game again, Alex Len or Mo Harkless?
Oh my,
or neither?
No, I think it's very possible both of them. I mean, they're both under contract next season. So
okay, how about who's more likely to play again this season?
See, that's tough. I'm going to say Alex Len, but no, because Rashawn's back. No, it's probably Mo Harkless. They kind of slipped something in there. I know Alvin Gentry has slipped it in a couple of times that Mo Harkless is beat up, and that's why he pulled him out of the rotation, was because like he had an ankle injury, he's got a bunch of bumps and bruises. But here we are, like 2 weeks in, a week and a half in. I just think that they're going to go try out younger guys at that position either way, except for Lou the King, who's no longer there.
Lou the King.
Rashawn back. Any idea how he felt after that game back?
He said he felt great. He said he totally felt fine because we talked to him after the game. I thought he was good in post game because you never know what you're going to get there. We asked him questions like, has he had, somebody asked him if he'd had conversations with Sabonis, and he did nothing but rave about Sabonis, just said he's been a great teammate so far, and they've had really good conversations, mainly about like coverages and, schemes and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation for anyone. to be put into, where
I
you
thought he
just
played all right too.
he did. It was the first time in a long time he's played really well, and the problem that he has is he still doesn't have a passer that can give him the lob at all. Like no one is setting him up at all. They're not using him in the 2-man game. They're not using him how they were playing before. But at the same time, that's what's going to happen when you don't have any shooters at all. They just collapse the lane. They're collapsing the lane against Fox, but he's playing so well in the 2-man game. They're collapsing it against Sabonis, which is leading to fouls and turnovers. But he's still been a beast in my mind. But with Rashawn, he doesn't have the tool set to do a bunch of counter moves and stuff. Like he's pretty straight up. He's got the flip shot, and he's got the lob game. And then we asked him like, how can you play with Sabonis? And he said very straight up. He said, I got to hit the three. If I'm going to be Miles Turner, I got to hit the three. So
Fox gave Holmes a very, very nice alley-oop in that game on Saturday. And, Holmes isn't 100%. He ended up getting hung on the rim. That hurt me. It's like, oh, I know he's not healthy. Because that would have been a two-hand flush if he was healthy. And he got hung. That was tough. The other thing that was tough for Rashawn, and I'm not judging him because it's first time playing in weeks, and he's not even 100%. But it was tough to see the Mavericks kind of hunt him out a little bit on Saturday. They would get him in the switches, and when it was Dinwiddie or Brunson or whoever, when they got Holmes on the switch, it was like, oh, it's time to work. And that's one of the things that Holmes does great is he's able to guard the 1 through 5 on those screen and rolls and stuff like that. And he's just not there yet. So hopefully, there was no setbacks. He should be in there tonight, right? And he can work his way back into that shape that we know he can bring.
Yeah, what I noticed was that he was he just seemed a little out of sorts, like on his spacing on the floor. So when he was in the pick and roll on the defensive side of the ball, he was just giving too much space early on. He doesn't usually do that. He's usually tighter with guys as they're going to the rim, and so he has a better opportunity to block shots. And look, Brunson's a very good player, and Dinwiddie can flat out score. It's not like those guys are just schlubs. Like those are good players, and he did he get caught a couple of times? Sure, but the Kings' defensive schemes have been all over the board all season long. Like whether they show on the high pick and roll, and or let teams just launch away from three, or whether they're setting the nail in a spot that gives a guy an opportunity to stay with somebody to block a shot and stuff. I just don't think that the whole entire season has been kind of weird when it comes to the defensive end, and the numbers are horrible. I mean, this team is so much worse defensively under Alvin Gentry than they were under Luke Walton. And if you remember back to the Luke Walton era, we just were in awe about how bad defensively they were. Yeah, I think their defensive rating was around 110, and it's over 115 with during the Alvin Gentry era.
Man.
So it's been pretty rough.
Really don't like some of these eras that we have here in Sacramento.
Well, they're short.
That's very true. Since we're talking about defense and coaching, I don't know how much you've had a chance to check in with them this year. This is not the New York Knicks team I think we expected to see this year. They've fallen off quite a bit from where they were last year. And Kenny and I, as we're trying to get ready for this game, and we will continue to all the way up until 4 o'clock, trying to pinpoint exactly what's gone wrong with the New York Knicks. And that's kind of been difficult to do. Their defense is worse. It's not terribly, terribly worse. They're still a top 10 defense. Julius Randle's still playing really well. You've had some failures with your roster, but yeah, this thing's on that Tom Thibodeau timeline where it looks like it could come to an end here pretty soon.
Yeah, he has a way of working his way, sort of wearing people out. So I know he's a very good coach, but he likes to play his starters tremendous amounts of minutes and then leave everybody else out.
He likes to coach them tremendous amount of minutes during practice as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy who really does wear out his welcome super quick. And it's too bad because he's a really good coach. And you would figure that over the course of time, coaches usually figure these things out. They go, oh, that's what I did the first time, but the second time around, I'm going to try to do it a little differently. The third time around, the fourth time around, He just keeps doing it the same way, and then he keeps running himself out of town. Yeah, it doesn't look great there. I know we're already seeing the front office position to make a move this summer, and that's kind of surprising because they were such a shocking. They came out of nowhere last season, and really did look okay. And it's just a disappointment because the Knicks should be better, and the Knicks are playing on the second night of a back-to-back. I mean, this is one that I kind of circled and said, well, the Kings should win, but I also said they needed to win of this 5-game stretch. With this is the last one, they needed to win 4 at a minimum, and maybe even 5 to have a shot. And they'll be lucky if they win 3. They've got to get the game tonight to win 3, and that's just not good enough, unfortunately. And it might come down to literally one really bad defensive play that costs you a 3-pointer with 3 seconds left against Dallas, where you're just like, what are you doing? And so that's, again, I think that's where we're kind of at. Like, this season is coming down to, how many times this season have you cost yourself in crucial moments, and now you're going to pay the piper for it.
What did you see there in that last play, Ham? I saw, yes, Holiday was out of position. He got stuck, but I'll say this. I'll give a little bit of a credit to Jason Kidd there, because if you watch that game, you saw them continuing to run that, dribble handoff between Brunson and Dinwiddie. And it was all set up for Fox to switch or Mitchell to switch. They were used to that. In that particular play, they didn't do that. They didn't do the dribble handoff. So it created a half second of indecision for Mitchell and Fox about, are we still switching or I'm staying? Mitchell did a good job of recovering and being there to guard Brunson. But Holiday was just looking for some natural help, because it looked like Mitchell was going to get beat. Like, from my vantage point, watching, it looked like Mitchell was getting beat. Holiday went over to help and protect the basket, but Mitchell caught up. Holiday turned his hips and his whole back to Finney Smith and got completely frozen and caught. And Brunson made a great pass. Finney Smith hit a great shot. I know ideally Holiday, should have been in a different spot, but sometimes you got to tip your hat to the other guys. They created a little confusion and had guys off for a little half second, and it worked for them.
Yeah, I mean, I get some of that, but I looked at the play and I thought, who is Holiday going to stop? Like, there was a big man in between Holiday and the offensive player. Like, there was nowhere for Holiday to help there. And so I thought he sagged in for no reason. And like, we've seen that if he stays home, like Bullock, the only thing Bullock can do is shoot the 3. That's all. Well, and Dorian Finney-Smith, that's who hit it, right? Like, all of those guys, they are hiding in the corners. Those guys are just straight up assassins from the corner. I mean, it's one of the highest percentage shots in the league. And if he's in position, he either steals that ball or he's all over the top of him. And to me, you can't give up the 3 right there, because if you give up the 2, then you have more options on the other end in the closing seconds. You don't have to have a haymaker. And, again, Holiday ends up hitting the putback shot, but there's, that doesn't help you. You already gave up the 3 that took the putback, 2-point putback out of the realm. I mean, if anything, Holiday should have tried to shove the ball out to the corner and for another 3-point attempt, which I don't even think there was enough time. But that whole entire sequence, to me, that's just a veteran who was out of position, and like it plays into a greater narrative that I've seen so far with some of the players that they've brought in.
That is the creator of the Kings Beat and our 1320 Kings Insider, James Ham. James, got to get on the road. We got basketball tonight. We appreciate you as always, my friend. We'll see you back here Sunday. We'll come back. We'll get you ready for the Kings. Did I say Sunday? Not Sunday. We plan to see you on Wednesday.